Jersey facility and may be monitored and or recorded for security reasons.
Well, I'm talking to the prison again, and I've got a guy on here whose name is Can.
That's correct, yes.
Now, you're in prison? Is this your first time in prison?
It's actually my second time in prison. I've actually I've been here now for just about 5 years now. I'm due to be released sometime next year.
Right. So you've seen a bit of the system. You've seen the system.
I have, yes. Well, the next governor that comes in will be my third since I've been here.
Right. I mean, I've asked the previous interviews, anybody know exactly what went wrong with the previous governor? Because he sounded as though he was going to be progressive, but any idea what happened?
Only rumours, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
Quite a lot of rumours that go around in a place like this, but nothing definite. We don't know, and it wouldn't be right for me to speculate because I'm not sure. But it was a shame because he did seem to be quite a progressive guy. His face was always shown around the prison. He would come in and speak to us, and he seemed to be genuinely interested in what we were doing. And my time spent on the prison council, he did seem to be, a guy who listened to prisoners and generally wanted the best ones, which is a shame he's not here anymore.
I mean, obviously it's false times at the moment with the virus affecting everything that happens, but are you able to tell whether the prison is getting better or worse as far as you're concerned?
Nothing really much changes. Although we have different people in charge and everything seems to stay the same. Even though, like I say, there are different people in charge and they bring in new rules, not an awful lot seems to change.
Well, it's like all institutions, isn't it? They have to have a structure to it, and if you change it every so often, every couple of years, then that causes confusion for everybody, doesn't it? And I presume, as you're a prisoner, you want stability. You want to know predictably what's going to happen, I presume. I don't know.
Yes. As you can imagine, routine is a big thing here. And sometimes that can be a good thing. Time seems to go by very quickly. And I'm wondering whether that's anything to do with the routine that we know what 1 week is going to be the same as the next. And
right.
It is quite helpful because you can make plans and you know that you're not going to, that things aren't going to change and you're going to be left wondering what's going on. So in that respect, it's good. There are some things that we wish could change, but obviously.
Right. We've got a lot to discuss, and I'm interested in. So this is your second time in there. Is it for a similar offence, or is it something totally different?
It is. No, it's a similar offence.
Now, obviously, rehabilitation, preparing people for release, recycling people so that they can fit in. Is there anything about the process of prison which is recycling you? Are you going to be different when you come out?
No. The judge, when I was sentenced, sent me to prison and said he hoped that I would receive the help that I needed and that he wouldn't see me in the court again. Now, when I came to prison, there's no, there's nothing that they do that for myself that would. There's no treatment or anything like that goes on. I don't know whether the judge knew that was the case and whether he was just paying lip service or whether he genuinely was, ignorant to the fact that there's no treatment up here. I can speak to a psychologist, I can speak to my probation officer, but there are no. I think I've been here 5 years and I've done one course, and this was a shoe-fits-all course called the Thinking Skills Program, which wasn't tailored to.
This is a recurring theme that mental health support is sadly lacking. This is a recurring theme that I keep getting. That obviously,
I speak to psychology and probation, but it's purely on a voluntary basis. I'm not obliged to, and I do it because it's pretty much all there is to do that is anywhere near any kind of treatment.
Were you there obviously you were there in 2017, because the reason I ask that is because there was a prison inspection in 2017, and the guy who was in charge then, the Magistrates Inspector of Prisons, is retiring now, and he's just put out a very critical report on the prison system generally. He's very praiseworthy in his report of the Moye generally. We can discuss some of the things. But he's saying about prisons in the UK, rat-infested and awful, But one of the themes is the lack of training, lack of rehabilitation, which runs throughout the prison service. Now, for some, obviously, they will claim under-resourced. A lot of them in the UK are privatised, and that's all about making profit. But Jersey's prison is a small prison, 140, 150 prisoners. And it should be, his report, unfortunately his report was an announced visit. He didn't say, were you ever aware that he was doing a visit in 2017?
We get given a questionnaire before the inspectorate comes to see us. So we're given it's a very general questionnaire. Do you think that this is right? Can you tell me if this is right? What do you think about this? And we fill that out, so we know that something's going on. They never turn up and we're going to inspect you now without any warning. Everybody knows, and we know that everything's clean. It's quite false because it's a lot of things are done purely for. We know there was a lot of things being installed, like we were having stair lifts installed, and this, that, and the other. So we knew that things were happening, and there was going to be an inspection. And but I think that's the same across the board. That's the same in the UK as well. There are never any inspections that just happen off the cuff without any warning.
Well, there were faults that he identified in his 2013 report. I don't know if that was him who did that. And they were still there in 2017. And I feel sure, because of COVID, they'd be maybe even worse. But if he came back today, those would be the same faults that are there today. Now, one of the things, for example, was that people shouldn't be sharing cells. And obviously that is being remedied. I gather they are building separate cells for everybody. That is on the agenda, but that is stopped.
Not so much building separate cells. So we have obviously there are different wings within the prison. Some of the wings are purely single cell occupancy.
Right.
They're all single cells. The wing that we're housed on is a mixture of single and double cells. So I think there's 40 odd cells altogether, and maybe less than half are single occupancy. They certainly won't be building any single occupancy cells on this wing, but they are refurbishing all the cells. So it's kind of what we expect. You come in, you share a cell, and if you're here long enough and people leave, you might be lucky enough to get a single cell.
Right.
That's the way it is.
That's how it works, is it? Because I hear that the females, because there are not many women prisoners, you won't know much about what goes on in the women's wing, but they're accommodated.
They've got quite a large wing, and there are not very many of them.
So and their facilities are much better.
They have much bigger cells.
They have, that's right.
Cell showers, which we don't have either.
But on the downside, because there's not many of them, the opportunities for them to be doing anything is even less because there's segregation, male from female.
Yes.
So they're in a bit of a...
I hear they struggle to find them,
exactly. So they're more comfortable, but their minds are left vacant because they're not stimulated and they're not prepared and all the rest of it.
From what I'm led to believe, yeah.
Interestingly, there's a picture on my screen here which you won't be able to see, and it's a picture of a model aircraft which was built, and there's two guys, and you know something because that is your model aircraft, isn't it?
It is, yes. I was asked by the governor to build it for Lady Dalton.
Right.
Lady Dalton does a lot of work with the prison, supports
Right.
the prison, and comes around and is genuinely interested. She stops and speaks to us and wants to know what's going on and how we are. And the governor the previous governor, I should say, Mr. Cameron, came to see me and said that for all her hard work, he would like to do something to say thank you. So I don't know whether you're aware, but she did the wing walking.
I was aware, yes. Brave lady, I wouldn't do that.
No, it wouldn't be something I'd be interested in. But he said that her father used to fly the aircraft that she actually walked on, which was a Boeing Stearman, and would it be possible for me to build her one? Because I'm a carpenter by trade and I work in the workshop. And it's not something I'd done before, but I said I would give it a go. And one of the officers was kind enough to buy a model of a kit form model off the internet and gave me the plans.
Right.
So I scaled up the plans and built the ones you can see in the aircraft you can see in the picture there. And when she came in to see us, I was asked to present it to her. We had a chat for 10 minutes.
So that reveals, because I've heard from a couple of prisoners that, like, for example, they're not allowed to have glue. But that, you tell me, I think you said that's done in the workshop.
Yes, I work in the workshop, so I have access to some machinery and tools and glues. And I think it took me maybe a week, 10 days to make that. It's actually made from recycled pallets.
Because there was a picture on this, which again you can't see, of somebody standing with dozens and dozens of old pallets. I wondered what that was all about.
Yes, well, a lot of the furniture we make, not all of it, but a lot of it, we use recycled pallet boards. I know that.
Well, there's a picture alongside yours, which I can't get on the camera at the moment, but that is of furniture, outside seating. Is that still made there?
Yes, it is, yes. There are two workshops. So the main wing make lots of picnic tables and things like that, which are sold from various establishments around the island. And in our workshop, we made lots of seating for cafeterias. I know there's one down La Collette that we made some corner seating for.
Right.
Yeah,
so that's it's not all bad then in that regard, because years ago I used to be involved with a charity, and the prisoners there used to make in the sewing. They used to sew cuddly toy rhinoceroses. And then all of a sudden they got to a very high standard, and I knew there was a lady in there, there was a woman doing them, and she was a seamstress, and the quality suddenly improved. And then when she came out, she said, well, she was so keen to do them, they used to let her do them in her cell, which I can't imagine they do now, but it was quite enlightening. But then that stopped. They weren't able to offer that service anymore, so I don't know what happened. But I assume that sort of activity had ceased, but I'm glad to hear that activity still goes on.
Yes. I think there's four of us that work in the workshop where we are.
Right.
We're within the horticultural compound, so most of the guys out there are working in the greenhouses and growing vegetables and things like that. But we have a workshop within the compound where there are 4 or 5 of us that make furniture. Sometimes it's to order, and sometimes things are slow. They'll say, just make what you want, and I think the prison have a craft shop now, or they have a website, an internal website for states members where they can go on and.
Well, I've learned something. You said it's nice talking to you, because I've learned something. I thought that had ceased. There used to be a shop in Gloucester Street, and they used to sell this stuff in the wheels in the window.
Right. But I think the prison have their own craft shop now. I'm not sure whether they're open, but it's certainly an idea that was being bandied around.
Anyway, what's interesting about this is all part of the rehabilitation process. Now, obviously, as we've discussed on previous interviews with people, the public want to see you punished. You've done something wrong, whatever it is, you've got to be punished. They don't accentuate on the rehabilitation side. They don't really see that. But one day, not so long in the future, you're going to be amongst us again in the public domain. You're going to be out walking, and something's got to change with you. You say you're not going to be any different. Do these things, craft shop, whatever, workshop, do they not sort of put a different thought in your head? I mean, you're doing something useful. Does it not have that desired effect?
The work that I do in the prison is the work that I did before I came to prison.
Right.
I'm a carpenter by trade, so I can appreciate that if somebody came to prison and wasn't skilled in that area, there is education they can do. They can take courses in bricklaying, in carpentry. So if somebody didn't have that skill, came to prison and learned that skill, certainly appreciate where it would give them a different mindset once they left. They could certainly think, that's something I could do in future life. For myself, it's not quite the same as that, because it's all I've done since I've left school is work with wood.
Well, I mean, obviously, if you're that skilled, you could teach somebody else. Would they not allow you in the workshop to teach somebody?
I do, and in respect to, I'm a qualified carpenter, so if anybody has any issues, they'll normally, the work will be given to me, and I will delegate people to do their different tasks based on the skill sets of the people who are working in there. So I do. I can oversee people and give people direction on how to work, and especially on safety aspects. Don't use a tool like this; it's not safe. Things like that. So
another thing, which is
the work that we do before it leaves the workshop.
Another thing which features on these pictures on the internet, you get lots of visitors come up there, and they think it's all jolly fun. They dress up as prisoners or put on, and they go up and have their picture taken, and they have a day in the prison, pretend to be locked up. Now, that's a serious educational visit, or should be. Now, the bailiff, whoever he was who sentenced you, ought to take part in that. He ought to know what goes on in the prison. If he's saying, this will happen to you in prison, is it based on fact, or is he just assuming that's what happened? I mean, these people who are in the system, they ought to know what goes on in the prison, didn't they?
Yes, but I don't think they ever will. I mean, the people, we saw the 12 people that were sentenced and did their day in prison.
Exactly.
Their 24 hours in prison was no reflection whatsoever on what
of course not.
24 hour in prison. So to say that they have a taste of what it's like, yes, you can put somebody in a cell and leave them there for 24 hours, but that's not prison life. That's just staying in a cell for 20. They know they're getting out the next day.
Well, it's like being disabled for a day, isn't it?
Of course, yeah. It's reflection on prison life.
How can we, this year after year, there's 2013, 2000, I'm seeing the same gaps in the service recognised by people who know about prisons, that there's a gaps in the service. They're not changing people. Like you said, when you come out, you're not going to be a changed person. Now, could you be a changed person? Is there some process? What would they need to do to make...
I've spoken to, when I have every 6 months we have a review of our sentence, and if they always say, what can we do to help you? But I've spoken to countless people, and I said, look, you need to have a dedicated treatment system. And what I'm told is we do not have the numbers to warrant the money that would cost.
That's right. They want more prisoners then, really.
Yes, because it's not the sort of thing, the amount that it costs to put each person through treatment is only viable if there's a group of people that are doing it at the same time.
Exactly.
You can't have one person come in and say, right, we're going to start your treatment next week, and 2 weeks later somebody else comes in, and you've got all these people at different stages of treatment all running side by side. They want everybody on at the same time, but unfortunately we don't have the numbers. We're not like the UK where there may be 100 people in one area all waiting for treatment. We may only have 2 or 3, and then in 6 months' time, another 2 or 3.
I mean, I've been hearing variations of this story because I go to scrutiny panels for years and years and years, and whenever there's a new Home Affairs minister appointed, they all start off with the wonderful plans, and they're always trying to reduce the number in prison by repatriating people where they can to somewhere else. So they want the numbers in the prison kept down as low as possible because they see that as an economic saver. That saves them money. You don't have to feed some money and all the rest of it, which is true. But on the other hand, it means they can't justify putting on facilities that the decreasing number they've got left there. So they're defeating the object of rehabilitating people on it because they're simply not going to put the facilities on, are they?
Yes. I mean, I think the greatest asset that the prison has here, as far as rehabilitation is concerned, is education.
Right.
If for people who want it and who can put up with the stress that it comes with it, is to educate yourself, to do something. I left school with no academic qualifications. I went straight into a carpenter's workshop, and that's all I've done. Now, when I came here, I started off by doing a diploma in construction skills, so I'm actually, I've got a recognised diploma in that now. Then I started taking art lessons, which is something I'd never done before, but it gave me confidence, thinking, if I can do that, I wonder what else I can do.
Right.
And I started doing mathematics, and then I moved on from mathematics to physics, and now I'm doing an open university.
Are you really? Open university?
I'm blown away by, the marks I'm getting are beyond what I have thought I could. And if anything is going to be really rehabilitate me, I would say it's that.
Will that lead you towards employment when you come out? Will that lead you towards stability?
I mean, I've always been interested in physics and things like that, in that type of area, but I didn't think I was ever clever enough to actually learn about it. I enjoyed watching TV programs with Brian Cox and things like that, but I never understood in depth what he was talking about. But since I've started studying, I've realised, well, do you know what? I apply myself and I can do it. And I think I've encouraged other people to go down that path. Unfortunately, it's very stressful because you're trying to do an online course in a surroundings where you don't have access to the internet. So it can be incredibly frustrating. But if you can stick at it, it is very rewarding. So in practical terms, how do you do it? How do you do the course? So we're sent paper books, which are supposed to be copies of what you would get online. But unfortunately, a lot of the work I do, we would be doing online, is applications, moving pictures, videos, and things like that. So they send us DVDs, and if everything worked correctly, it would be great. Unfortunately, it never works correctly. So haven't they got a study room? In October, I might not receive any of the paperwork until November. So I'm already starting 6 weeks behind, trying to play catch up, which is exactly what's happened to me every single year. But I've been doing this degree. Do your tutors, whoever they are, do they know where you are? Do they know you're in jail? Do they know? They know that. We get a chance to speak to our tutors once every couple of weeks, and they're absolutely fantastic. I mean, when you're speaking to people at the OU, your tutors or whoever, they can't do enough to help you. They're absolutely brilliant. Really? My tutor last year offered to actually come into the prison. He was going to take a holiday in Jersey. He was going to come in and see me and spend a day with me, tutoring me on any issues that I had. Unfortunately, with the COVID, it never happened, which was a shame, But, who pays for the course? Because they're quite expensive. Yes, I mean, we were allowed the same funding as if I was a mature student on the outside. So there's the education department allow funding.
They allow grants and things like that.
Yes, yes.
Oh, that's good.
As long as I keep passing, they'll keep funding me.
Right. Would they allow for retakes if you failed one? You failed a module, could you retake it, but at your own expense?
Yes, but I would have to pay myself, and then once I pass it, then they would continue funding me again. They won't continue to fund you if you fail. But to be honest, the threshold for passing is it's not massively high. It's set that on purpose so that they can keep people interested and keep people on the track.
You're very enthusiastic about this education. Now I'm amazed, therefore, you don't say, well, when I come out, I'm going to be a different man. Because you will be a different man, because you'll have knowledge which you didn't...
I mean, this isn't something that is going to put me on a different career path.
Right.
Because I really enjoy what I do as far as my creative woodwork and things like that. I love it, and I really want to... But as a hobby, there's something about learning that it's difficult to explain. I'm doing something I never thought I'd be able to do. I'm learning about a subject that's incredibly complex, and it's very rewarding when I submit an exam and I get a good mark back.
Like all the
dreams when I was at school, I wouldn't be able to be where I am at the moment. So in that respect, yes, it's rehabilitated me in that respect. But as far as the criminal aspect, I haven't had any help in the rehabilitation as far as that's concerned.
And that's the bit that's got to be changed most dramatically, because obviously, when you come out, where will you go when you come out of prison? Soon.
I've got a large family who support me, so
right.
I have work and I have accommodation. I'm lucky. Lots of people don't. I'm lucky.
What sort of age are you now?
I'm 45 next month.
45. So the old clock is ticking, isn't it?
Yes. There's not too many years left. I need to, whatever I'm going to do, I need to do it quickly.
Right. It's a dilemma, isn't it? What do you think society ought to do to you? I mean, you've committed whatever the crime is. What should they do to you? Should they lock you away?
Yes, I think there has to be some punishment and a loss of liberty, because without that, then there is no deterrent. I'm not saying that there wasn't a deterrent in the first place, but there has to be some kind of punishment that fits the crime.
Right.
It has to be tailored with rehabilitation. But being within this system for so long, I've learned about how systems in other countries work, and the reoffending rates in these other countries are a fraction of what they are in the UK.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that. And if you look at the way that the prison systems work in these other countries, it's a no-brainer. Locking people away and forgetting about them doesn't work. You have to
Jersey is
you have to retrain them.
Jersey is a small place. Now, when you are released, you'll be in a small community. You will be mixing with people, maybe some people you've offended against, I don't know. And that's always a problem, isn't it? So, and there may be friends of friends, there may be somebody want to come and whack you on the nose, whatever, all that sort of a threat. It's a real possibility, isn't it?
Yes, it is, yes.
So...
you have to deal with that and when. I don't think you can... I mean, you can make preparations for it. You can not put yourself about, and be as large as life as maybe you were before you were incarcerated. But you can't, you can't hide yourself away either. I'm not gonna leave here and become a recluse, because that doesn't help anybody. Well,
later on today, there's a bit of a meeting in the Royal Square about the memorial, whether they should have the memorial in there for...
Yes, I've been following that in the paper.
Now, I should go down and see it, observe. I might take some... But I'm worried about it, because there are some people who want to make an issue of it. They're not necessarily people who've suffered, but everybody's got a right to an opinion. But there will be people out there who are upset by the whole issue. They genuinely won't want to be reminded of it. So it's very difficult if when you come out, those people, whoever, in that case, in that particular thing, if you've broken into a shop or something, every time you go past that shop, whatever you've done, there will people say, oh, that's that bastard who broke into my shop. Well, this is the sort of thing that'll happen, isn't it? It will upset them, won't it? And if we had a memorial to people who do breaking and entering, if that's what it was, it would upset people, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I forget the lady's name now who wrote a letter to the JP during the week, and
right.
She basically said exactly that. There are people who don't want a colourful rainbow structure staring them in the face and reminding them of the times that they'd rather forget. It's not glorifying it, but it's along that, it's a constant reminder, and some people don't want to be reminded.
It's hard, isn't it? Because we've had this. I mean, this is an incredible debate that's going on around the world, black and white. George de Carter, with his statue, suddenly realised that he was a slave trader on a very large scale, and that maybe we shouldn't be saying what a wonderful chap he was. After all these years, 3 centuries ago, and this is how it is. Memorials are there to remember. And
I had a conversation with somebody last week after reading the paper and said, how long is it going to be before that's vandalised?
Yeah.
Because it's just,
it's inevitable, isn't it?
Yes, eventually it will be.
And it'll be vandalised by people who haven't got a clue what it's all about. It won't be vandalised for some high moral principle. It'll be vandalised because it's, they just want to vandalise it. I mean, I don't...
And it wouldn't surprise me if eventually it's removed if it's,
That's right. And deteriorate. I put up a post the other day about the Aberfan disaster when the hillside, the coal slag, fell into and killed hundreds of people, children especially. Now, they put a memorial there in the churchyard. That had deteriorated to such an extent, that memorial, that they had to spend nearly £1 million on it recently to restore it. Now, it had been totally neglected. Now, that was a very serious memorial, remembering something which there were people to blame because they'd allowed the coal slag to fall in. But that's how it is with memorials. People neglect them. People forget, don't they?
Yes.
If somebody came up with a bright idea for reforming the prison, what sort of suggestion would you make? What would you say? This is what we need to do here.
I think if people are going to be spending any amount of time behind bars, then we have these things with early release, and we have two. When you get in, you're allowed your EDR, which is your earliest date of release, and you have CER, which is conditional release.
Right.
And so your EDR is you serve 2/3 of your sentence. They should make it compulsory that if you want to be released after serving 2/3 of your sentence, you must make an effort to take some form of education, whatever that may be. Obviously, people of different skill levels are going to be allowed to do different levels of education, but you have to do something. You've got to engage. You can't just come in, do your time, and expect to get out after 2/3. If you want to come in and do nothing, fine. You stay in for your full sentence. If you want your EDR, engage and do something productive and leave prison with something more than what you came in with.
Have you any idea how many people are doing things like Open University up there at the moment? Is it many, or are you unique?
I know I believe there are 2, potentially 3 on our wing. I'm not sure. I can't. Right. I couldn't say. I believe there are people on the other wing that are doing it, but I would guess that it's less than 10 in the whole prison.
If there was
it's probably less than 6, I would say, in the whole prison, but I'm not sure.
Would it help if there was a supervised study room where you could have access to computers under supervision? Would that help?
Well, we have a library. And we have computers in our cells. Obviously, we're only connected to an internal network.
Right.
But as far as documents, a lot of the online content is put into a PDF and put onto our systems in our cells, so we can work that way. Obviously, we don't have access to the actual Open University portal, which is a shame, and we never will. This has been discussed, and we're never going to have access to that, which is why we have an education manager who does her best to help us with anything that we need and facilitates us when we have our talks with tutors and things like that. So anybody that wants to better themselves can, if that's what they want to do.
But they need encouragement.
Some do. I think the like I said before, if you want to get out after 2/3 of your sentence, engage and do something. I don't see why that's such a big issue. Otherwise, if you don't want to do anything, if you just want to sit in your cell and do nothing, then fine, do that for the entirety of your sentence.
We're going to have to stop. Final thought, have you got one?
Not really, no. I think I've said all I needed to say.
Well, if you'd like to speak to me again, if this service is allowed to stay in place, which is an excellent facility, if we're allowed to carry on at some point in the future, if anything changes, anything you want to add, just get in touch.
I will do. Thank you very much, Mike.
Thanks a lot. You see, this is lockdown. But this, I'm in well, not in lockdown exactly. We're on restricted circulation and so on. I was on lockdown for a week because I had a test which was proved negative and so on. But I just put this picture up because this is the view from one of my windows in my flat. Now look at it. I mean, okay, it's sea. It's the seascape with a bit of landscape in the front. Now people come into my flat here and they say, what a fabulous view. And it is a fabulous view. But imagine you're a prisoner and you're locked up. Well, of course, you don't get wonderful sea views if you're a prisoner. And it's that little thing about loss of liberty, what it actually means to somebody when they talk about punishment. To be denied that is punishment. Now, I think we have to be conscious of that. Whether they deserve to be locked up, whether they deserve to be punished, these are issues. But for lots of people, just seeing that view, like there's France over there, you can't quite see it. It is on the horizon. Isn't it wonderful? You see, now that's denied the prisoner.